called here and listened to her there in still the North Carolina home where I grew up. She suffered this week another mini stroke, and that powerful, fiery voice that was heard in the house and out of the house was weaker than I've ever heard it. But it was clear she said to me what she says every day when we speak: "When are you coming home?" "Mother, I'm planning to be there in a couple of weeks for your 90th birthday." And her dementia causes her to ask again, "Mary, you know you're named after my mama. When are you coming home?" "Mama, I'm coming." I couldn't tell her how I was trembling inside, or the possibility that that voice might be silenced sooner than I wanted it to be. I spoke this week to a dear friend of mine who is a retired United Methodist Church leader. He was a close companion of Dr. Martin Luther King, and my mother knew him well, and that's why I wanted to hear her voice. As I spoke with Woody a few weeks ago, I asked him if I could use for my time with you this morning a few of his quotes. Some of you may be familiar with Bishop Woody W. White. Born in Detroit, he writes annually a letter to Dr. Martin Luther King, his friend. A few weeks before the election, Martin, I was having a casual conversation with a young African-American male. And out of the blue, he said, "Bishop, I hate white people." Astonished by this revelation, for this typically soft-spoken, low-keyed, and not otherwise given to anger or hyperbole, I asked simply, "Why? Why?" He replied with little emotion, "Because they hate me." That's often the way of hate, especially group hate or prejudice. If it finally settles on an individual, a single person, someone's mother or father, son or daughter, brother or sister, it is a person who hated, abused, marginalized. Sadly, the election season and presidential campaigning were filled with ugly rhetoric of not only racial and ethnic character assassination, but all persons and a world that would dare to be different than an encroaching nationalism and privatized interests. The emergence, at least in the news, of neo-Nazi and white nationalist groups has been more prevalent. Our racial conversation has been polluted by prejudice and racial words and behavior, increasing acts of characterized as hate crimes are reported across the nation. The late poet Maya Angelou penned in her book, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, "When people show you who they are, believe them." It appears more Americans embrace such sentiments than we realize or wanted to acknowledge. So there are many, thousands upon thousands, the object of such racial scorn and scorn for anyone different. We're left with the question, should we believe what we hear and see? If I were writing a letter also to Martin, the power of racism, ethnocentrism, and xenophobia in the minds and hands of politicians and the shapers of institutions is proof such hatred can be institutionalized. Ideas can become policy, policy can become law, and law regularized behavior. It is what, at least regarding race, is called institutional racism. Individuals don't have to act on their racism. Institutions do it for them and perpetuate it at the same time. That's why democracy is important. That's why elections are essential, regardless of the fear of gerrymandering. That's why who is elected makes a difference at every level of governing, local and county and state and national. Sadly, there are those who would undo progress, who prefer exclusiveness and division to inclusiveness and unity, who prefer to erode the principles and ideals of American democracy itself. Thank you, Martin, and countless others we don't name enough. We moved from a less than great America to a greater one, to one more true to its ideals, one nation under God with liberty and justice for all. However, it is increasingly clear to me there is still much work to be done. More protesting, more marching, more organizing, more registering people to vote and being more politically engaged. We must bring people of goodwill from all races and all cultures and backgrounds to find that elusive common ground. But Martin, our goal, of course, isn't merely a better, more just America. As people of faith, we strive for a more beloved community, for what we sometimes call the true reign of the God who loves us all. It is where love and justice prevail, and where we embrace a common humanity, not just as citizens, but also as brothers, as sisters, with our brothers and sisters who need the light in Kathmandu. We strive for a beloved community that fulfills the will of God, a place where brothers and sisters not only hold common citizenry, but all claim a common creator, no matter what the naming may be. It is a place where we seek to make God's will real in all we say and do, and how we live together in the place the Creator has provided this world. The important lesson, one of the important lessons I have learned over these many years, I have spent working toward the building of a better world, is that the true work of social transformation starts within. It begins inside your own heart, your own mind, because the battleground of human transformation is really more than anything the struggle within the human consciousness to believe and accept what is true. Finally, this, Martin. To truly revolutionize our society in the best sense of the word, we must first revolutionize ourselves. We must be the change we seek if we are to effectively demand transformation from others. And oh, how I need to remember that. Dr. Martin, the morning following the election of the new President of the United States, I arose very early, having had little sleep, and I offered a prayer to God, emptying myself in unedited emotion. I concluded that prayer with these words: "Forgive me, dear God, if even for a moment I placed more trust in nation, in party, in candidate than the Creator of the universe. You are my rock," as the old Negro spiritual says, "in a weary land. You are the strength of my life. You are my hope on plains where hopelessness prevails." Continue. Commit to continue the struggle and the journey with assurance that this is not just the cliche that Dr. King and his followers saying, "We shall overcome." Amen.